And so they have gilded me or tasked me with this, and I have accepted and affirmed that it will be we'll have a good transition with this. So I'm a little nervous because it is my first time moderating, but I'm really delighted and honored to do this. We have a fabulous panel today, and we're thrilled that you could be here. We know that today is a busy day, preparing for holidays and family, and so we're just honored that you have taken time out of your schedule to be here, and affirm that other people will be joining us shortly. Also, one of our panelists, including Elsa, will soon be here as well. So, our topic for today is the holidays, time of celebration or depression. The holidays are a busy time, often leading to stress for some and loneliness for others. And this Faith Forum today examines how different faiths cope with seasonal and/or clinical depression of its members. And before we begin, and I begin introducing our panelists, I'd like to invite Larry Bell to share something that is going to take place right after our Faith Forum today, which we are all invited to partake in as well.
And who is Larry Bell?
Larry Bell is right there.
I'm right here. What is his position?
He is the executive
director of the center here, which is the Koel Jewish Heritage Center. And welcome to our center. If you haven't been here before, by the way, this is the very first synagogue that was built in Phoenix. And it also later became a Chinese-speaking and Spanish-speaking Baptist church. So it's an excellent place for an interfaith forum. It happens that right now we have an exhibit on display of life masks and paintings by an artist named Robert Sutz that deals with the Holocaust in our gallery over here. You probably saw it as you were walking in. And so we have a volunteer docent that's here today, and he'll be here after the program and be happy to give you a tour named Oscar, who is a survivor of the Holocaust. And so it's an interesting opportunity. If you like, you're more than welcome to go through the exhibit with Oscar and let him explain some of the things and talk to you, and you're welcome to ask him questions as well. He's a very nice guy, and he's actually looking forward to giving a few tours to all of you. So I hope you'll take advantage of that, if you will.
Larry, if you're not able to stay afterwards, do you have cards up there that we can come later?
Yeah, I'm going to put out some postcards for the exhibit too. You're welcome to take some and distribute them if you have other people that might want to see it. The exhibit gallery hours are going to be on Tuesday and Thursday from 12 to 3. And then on Sundays from 12 to 3, and on all of the Sundays from 12 to 3, there is actually a member of the Holocaust Survivors Association that's going to be a docent on the Sundays. So it's a different and, quite frankly, a better experience if you go through with them. They can certainly, I can explain things, but they can explain it in a different way. So I strongly encourage you, if you want to come see the exhibit, Sundays are definitely the day that the survivors will be there to lead tours from 12 to 3. So, other questions? Well, thank you very much for coming, and I'll turn it back over to Mitzi.
Thank you. So, of our three panelists who are here today, who would like to go first? Speak first. Rabbi Scharf.
Makes no difference.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi Scharf. So, Rabbi Scharf, I'm going to introduce you, and what I'd like to do is actually...
Does that count as part of my 8 minutes?
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Oh. I just thought you might as well keep going. She gave us 8 minutes. Take about 5 minutes to introduce me, and we have 3 minutes to go.
No. But what I'd like to do, instead of introducing everyone up front, is introduce each person when they come up so that we can kind of remember who we're listening to. I think that would I'm seeing a lot of nodding that we like that. So let me tell you about Rabbi Scharf that we are just delighted to have with us today. He received his ordination from Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1978, and his Doctor of Divinity in 2003 from the same institution. He served for 18 years as a congregational rabbi, and then he served for another 19 years as the chaplain at Koel Campus of Care in Phoenix. And this is a position from which he just retired in October of this year. He also serves as the contract rabbi for Hospice of the Valley. He has been the chair of JUET, formerly Beatitudes Center DOAR, Focus Conference Planning Committee. And he actually just left the JUET board as vice chairman in June of this year. So we're seeing a theme of retirement and free time for you. Rabbi Scharf has presented workshops at previous Focus conferences and at American Society on Aging national conferences, where he has been on the governing board of the Forum on Religion and Spirituality in Aging. He's also been a keynote speaker at many regional conferences. He is a member of the Professional Advisor Committee for the Pastoral Care Department at Banner Samaritan Medical Center, a member of the Institutional Review Board, as well as a member of the Medical Bioethics Committee. He co-facilitates a support group at the Shalom Center for Temple High that emphasizes ways to care for aging loved ones. He's a certified bereavement facilitator, so am I, and has a certificate of palliative care. Rabbi Scharf has also helped many not-for-profit organizations using, and this is something a little different, his auctioneering skills. Rabbi Scharf is married to Roberta, whom he's been married for 43 years. They have 2 children, and of course their spouses, and 2 grandchildren. And we are so thrilled. Let us give a warm welcome to Rabbi Scharf.
That sounds wonderful. What was she talking about? Our topic is one that necessitates, I think, certainly for people to have a little down feeling. Most of us at holiday times, of course, want to feel the joy and happiness, but yet many times we're surrounded by people who aren't so joyful and aren't so happy. Many of these people may have suffered a death within the last year of a loved one, and certainly the first of any holiday throughout the course of the calendar, the course of the calendar year, or any special event, the first time without a person is going to bring feelings of despair, feelings of loneliness, emptiness, and whatever other type of perhaps negative feeling that you can have. There are others, however, that maybe just sad because they've never had anybody to share the holiday with, never have anybody to be with and to be able to have a holiday to share with. So when holidays come around for us that have families, regardless of the religion, regardless of the holiday, I think for the most part, all of us, it would overlap as far as specific type of things. It makes no difference, or personal, things, birthdays, anniversaries, what have you. They have nobody to share those things with, and so they're just lonely many times altogether. Maybe for them, in certain respects, if it hasn't been a loss of somebody, it might be easier if you can get them to go with other people who don't have, and haven't had, and maybe haven't experienced, or they just remember from childhood. So it may be in some ways, but in many ways, I think the most important thing with the people that you're dealing with, regardless of faith, regardless of anything else, is to remember that everybody is an individual. And as an individual, you have to treat them as individuals. You can't put everything under, well, you're depressed because of this, so everybody handles it the same way. Everybody is going to react the same way. Everybody is going to need a different, perhaps, solution, or the same solution looked at in different ways, however it's going to be, or the fact that you're just there to listen to them. There may not be any solution. Okay? I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I have plenty of courses that I've taken in human relations and things of that nature. But I think as far as a clergy person is concerned, you also have to realize that you're not a professional who's been trained in all these areas. So if you get something at a person that's very difficult and very hard, It's not to try and really solve their problems as much as it is to listen, and then to refer them maybe to someone who is more able to deal and handle the situation, or they may even be going to that person, but they want a religious point of view. Sometimes they just may need a reading out of the religion. They need something positive that the faith has to offer, whether it's found in the book of Psalms, which most of our faiths, especially in the Western culture, have. Whether it's found in a book that is specific to the religion, whether it's found in just a quote, whether it's found in some profound reading or writing that someone else did years ago. And sometimes those type of things are just what you need. In Hebrew, we have things which are called mashals, and in English, I guess the easiest translation is a parable. And many times those parables and those stories and those examples are just what the person needs to say, see, there's a teaching in me. I can grasp onto that. I can hold it. I can do that. So those type of things sometimes become very, very valuable. What I try to do many times with a person, particularly a person who has suffered, a loss in their life, whether it be a parent, whether it be a spouse or something like that. And I've been working with a woman for, about a year. Every time something comes, she's always, she gets a little depressed and down. And my thing to her, which has helped her tremendously, and now she usually, I don't hear from her too much except by email. When she sends me emails of how she did this at this day, or how she did this at this holiday, and how wonderful it was. And that was basically not to, yes, it's sad that the person is no longer there. It's sad that the mother that she was so close to is no longer there. But what I tried to do was at the holiday times, is change that. In other words, it's Mom's birthday or it's my birthday, and Mom always brought, and always did this. So I said, well, still do that. If Mom did something special, do that special thing. Make it special. Rejoice in the life that was lived, and rejoice in the way that you used to rejoice. My wife, every year at her birthday, every year at Hanukkah, every year at whenever there's something where there might be a gift to be given, she would say, I didn't get a gift from my mother this year. And then she goes to the store, and she goes and buys something that her mother would never buy her. Okay? And then she goes, and whether it's a purse, whether it's a piece of jewelry, whether it's something else, and then she wears it, she said, and she'll go to the family, she'll go to the kids and the grandkids, and she'll say, this is what Grandma got me this year, or this is what Great-Grandma got me this year, okay? Or this is what my mother got me this year for my birthday. Okay? And in that way she rejoices and is able to rejoice in her mom. And it is from her that I got this idea, okay? To do that with people who are feeling low and missing, and maybe that first holiday and that first time. And it's amazing. Because now this person writes me emails and she doesn't ask anymore, she just does. My mother for the holidays used to love this. So now I've started doing such and such, and I'm doing it with the family like she used to do with me. I'm doing with my children and my grandchildren. And it's like Mom is there. Okay? And the point to remember, I think, is that, the person is not here physically any longer. But the person is always still with us. And the idea is to try, even though they're not here physically, is to make them live still with us. Make the blessings that you had and that you missed so much, don't let those blessings go, but bring them to life. And in that way, you're bringing life to yourself. And you're taking the time when she would moan and she would go, oh, what am I going to do? It's the birthday. What am I going to do? It's this. I said, so you buy a birthday cake and you say, happy birthday, Mom. Make the cake that she would have loved to have always had, or the pie, or whatever it is that it is. And celebrate with your family. It's still her birthday, you still remember. Okay? How many people have come to me and said, if I was still married, this would have been our 75th wedding anniversary. Okay, it would have been, I have, because I was a kibble, I had people who were in their 90s, it would have been their 75th wedding anniversary. Okay, and then they reminisce those times and those years. They're lonely, they miss that person, but they still, in a sense, in their own way, are celebrating that anniversary, even though they might be doing it alone. Because it's still their wedding anniversary. It's not something to throw aside. It's something to take those things and try to bring meaning and make them alive for the person now. And I think with anybody that you have that, it's a way of dealing, regardless of what the loss is, regardless of what the pain they might be feeling, is to try and see what it is they're doing and see if you can't help in some way turn that around. Again, whether it's through a reading, whether it's through something from a specific faith group, whether it's through that mashal, that parable that might be used, and then also trying to make it alive in their lives. It's not something that's gone, but make it alive and make it with you. So that's how I've learned to deal with it and what I've done in trying to help people, and I think I've already gone over my 8 minutes. It's about perfect. Good, I'm going to pass it on. I'd like to be perfect. Especially being the first one.
Yeah.
You don't want to go over. Let the other ones go over.
Rabbi Scharf, thank you so much. That was just so moving and so wonderful and so heartfelt. I could see a lot of us just having very visceral responses to your sweet and precious heart and the experience that you've had in really sharing with others, your generosity. So our next panelist she's already got the microphone ready and wait. Oh, we can
ready to
let
pass
go if you would like. Would you like Les to go? Are you ready?
I'm flexible.
Okay, you've got the microphone. Our next wonderful panelist is Reverend Laura Adelia. She is the assisting priest at Trinity Cathedral here in Phoenix. So obviously she is a Christian. And Laura is originally from Phoenix, Arizona. She is a chaplain with the Air National Guard USAF Reserves. She holds the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and currently serves as the wing chaplain at the 129th Air Rescue Wing, Moffett Airfield in Mountain View, California. She has had global deployments to Southwest Asia, Antarctica, and Panama. When asked how she has survived 22 plus years in the military, she says, humor and prayer. Since 2001, she has taught as an adjunct faculty member at Mesa Community College, teaching religious studies and history classes. She was ordained as an Episcopal priest July 2011 and was previously ordained for many years with the United Church of Christ and in fact served at Shadow Rock. In 2011, she served as a chaplain at the VA hospital in Palo Alto, California, serving our nation's veterans. Aside from being a combat veteran herself and the first female chaplain to serve on the continent of Antarctica, Laura is also a cancer survivor. She plays percussion and electric bass, loves learning, laughing, a good cup of coffee, and lives in Phoenix with her beloved mini doxies, Hannah and Hope. Please help me welcome Reverend Laura Adelia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. And this beautiful place. Such a happy room, isn't it? So joyful. Well, as you heard from that really long introduction, I'm a fairly new Episcopal priest, and so I'm still in transition myself, getting used to this thing around my neck, and my ministry has mostly been, even though I was UCC for many years, the ministry was mostly with the military, the Air Force, and the Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve. And so, you know, talking as an Episcopal priest, I'm still kind of a newbie. It's really kind of strange because militarily I'm a lieutenant colonel, but Episcopal priest-wise I'm a second lieutenant. So, but it's a real pleasure and honor to be there at the cathedral. It's, you know, just right up Central here, a couple blocks. And I'm having a ball, so there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. And I will be retiring from the military the next year or so. So one of the things I wanted to address, according to the topic for today, is that in the military, when it comes holiday season, it's kind of difficult to answer this question because most everyone goes home. You know, so as a military chaplain, which is by the way, very interfaith, and, you know, every denomination and religion under the sun and every culture and people from everywhere and every place. But around the holidays, everyone wants to go home. So it just becomes like a ghost town on the base. The thing is we see all the depression or stress and other things that come up during the year, predominantly when certain things you know, are causes to increase their stress. Like, for example, they have a loved one coming home from a global deployment, like their husband or wife is coming home after being gone a year. That causes a lot of distress, even for the person who's been home or their family. And, or if they're getting ready to deploy, what they call spinning up. You know, you have all these things you have to do to get ready, all your shots, all your medical, all your trainings that you have to do, and it's intensely stressful. And so you see things happen then. And interestingly, you know, as a person now working in the parish and then previously at Shadow Rock, you know, to tell you the truth, you know, around the holidays, it depends on what the person's bringing with them, and the holidays tend to amplify or trigger unfinished business or things that we're still working on or dealing with, such as grief, like the rabbi said, death of the mother or death of a loved one in the family. Gosh, all these Christmases or whatever the holiday is, you know, my mother was always here and now she's not. And so that tends to bring up a lot of stuff. Especially if the death or loss is very recent. And at Trinity, I'm impressed with them in that they have, here it is, you know, Thanksgiving's coming up, and they have a group that is meeting at 4 o'clock on Thanksgiving Day for people who live alone or are single and have no family locally, and they have a holiday meal right there, so people don't have to be alone if they you know, don't want to be. And then also, too, there's a lot of service opportunities. Like in the morning, there's the homeless breakfast that we put on. And you know how the old saying, it is in giving you receive. So sometimes even, you know, I'm human. When I start to get in a space like, things are, you know, because I've had a loss, too. My mother's gone. And it's when I'm serving others that I feel better. It makes me forget my own troubles, and it helps other people too. And I pass that information along. And then they go get involved, and they're like, "My gosh, you're right." And again, working with young people in the military, it's kind of similar in the college age bracket. You know, 18 to 25 is the predominant age group in the military. So it's kind of like doing college campus ministry with a twist. And they want to get out and do stuff. They want to give back to the community. They want to pay it forward, you know. But they're a lot of times dealing with their loneliness and being away from home for the first time. And Or if they're from back east or somewhere that's real green and they're here at Luke, it's so dry. And then the weather never changes. And then when I was at Luke for 7 years, this is home for me, so I'm used to this. But it's interesting to hear where they're coming from and what they miss. You know, everyone misses something. I think too, the thing about the holidays in the December time frame is that the days, at least in the northern hemisphere here, tend to get shorter and shorter and shorter, and the nights get longer and longer and longer. And you know, up in the Bay Area, I have a lot of friends from my military unit there, and someone posted on Facebook, "I can't believe it, it's 5:30 and it's already pitch black."
Yeah. Sure.
You know, as we're here, we're about a year or an hour behind. Yeah. And it is weird up there because, you know, they do daylight savings time at 4:30 around Christmas time or solstice. It is pitch black.
Wow.
And it is kind of odd. So it's kind of scary. So, you know, I think it makes us remind why there's all these holidays at this longest night, shortest day time of the year, is to get us through this kind of scary little time of the year. And it's, you know, to get us through that hard winter, to gather together and have a feast and give gifts. But I have to say, that didn't work down in Antarctica. Because when I was down there, it was daylight 24/7. And, you know, the sun just went around the horizon like this. It is the wildest thing to see. And to sleep at night, I had to tack a blanket on the dorm room that I was staying in, so at least I could have some darkness. But over there, I'll tell you a funny story. I'm working in the chapel down there, and I was the chaplain at at McMurdo Station, and the chapel down there was an interfaith chapel, and it was called Chapel of the Snows, the world's most southern chapel. And I have to tell you, it wasn't on my wish list of places to go, but there I was. And this lady comes in and she says, "Are you the chaplain here?" I said, "Yes. Hi, my name's Laura, and what can I do for you?" And she says, "Well, chaplain, I have a question. I just got here a couple days ago, and I'm Jewish, and what am I supposed to do Shabbat? The sun never sets here." Oh, wow. I said, "That is a good question. Let me get back with you." You know. So what I did is I emailed a friend of mine who's a rabbi in the Navy for New Zealand. And so I said, "I got a question for you." And so she wrote back right quickly, and she said, tell her that Rabbi said to follow the sunset of the closest landmass to Antarctica, and that was New Zealand. Of all interesting places, Christchurch, New Zealand. Yes. So I had to tell her to follow the sunset times of Christchurch, New Zealand. But it was a really interesting little congregation down there because we had everyone of all faiths. Christian, Jewish, we even had a couple of Muslims, we had a handful of Buddhists, and had a handful of, you name it. But when the holidays came down there was no longest day or shortest night, it was just 24 daylight. But what people did still is they gathered, whether they were religious or not. And they had a big festival and lots of food and lots of music and told stories, and that's what gets us through the times when we're missing home, when you're on the other side of the planet, and everything is just so darn foreign, because in Antarctica, believe me, everybody is a foreigner there.
Except the penguins.
Yeah, except the penguins. And am I at time? Okay, I will pass.
Oh, let's go to Les next, if we may. So that Gurukirn can have some time, a moment more to catch her breath as she walked in. But Laura, Reverend Laura, thank you so much for your wonderful. And I believe we're beginning to see a little bit of a theme that was shared by the rabbi and by yourself, and that is in serving others, that we are so gifted. So thank you for that. And what a great story about the chapels of the snows. So wonderful. So our next speaker is Les Koel. He is from Scientology. He is an ordained minister of the Church of Scientology and is trained to deliver Scientology and Dianetics spiritual counseling known as auditing. He also volunteers as a member of the local chapter of the Citizens Commission on Human Rights, a non-profit worldwide force actively working to eliminate brutal treatments, criminal practices, and human rights abuses in the field of mental health. In his discussion of depression, Mr. Koel will include 2 topics which you can later go onto our website and see videos about too if you have would like to have more information. Les is also an Arizona Interfaith Board member, and something that not everyone here may know about Les is he is a very accomplished and talented musician, a professional musician in fact, and sings at our church many times and is much beloved by our faith community as well. So please help me in welcoming Les.
Thank you very much. Good to be here. And yes, I'd like to start off with solutions for situations where this time of year where a person might be sad or depressed or sort of anxious about who might be coming to dinner this year again. Have to handle, oh man, you know. And those kind of things do come up. They also come up throughout the whole year, but they seem to be magnified because we do gather and we do see relatives or friends that we may not see the rest of the year. We may have had an upset last time and it's never been handled, and they're coming back, or we'd like to have them come back. So what do you do? And the rabbi and also the chaplain here mentioned losses that get reminded. And contrary to that, I think it's considered a maxim, time heals all. That's not really true. Years can go by and you can still have a heaviness come over you and grief even when reminded of a loss that may have occurred years ago. So in Scientology, our accent is on ability. When a person's having trouble, first of all, we're going to find out more information about it. So we would interview a person, get into communication with them, and then find out what the source of the problem is. And then there may be an ability that they can improve or knowledge about life that they could gather, which then they could use to go out and solve that problem. So we can't solve everybody's problems and then they just come back to you. Well, will you fix me today? Or will you fix me tomorrow? We'd rather, you teach somebody to fish, they're going to be able to fish and feed their family from then on. If you're always giving them fish, as a story from the past, they always got to come back. Could I have another fish? So we are an applied religious philosophy, and that means doing things. We want you to learn how to do and apply things so that you can make life better. So it may be in the area of communication. Some people don't handle their upsets because they don't have the guts to go to the person and sit down and have a chat with them. And how many of us have put off handling an upset, which then later turned out to be just a very small anthill to overcome, but since we were avoiding it and not confronting it, it gets bigger. It seems like it's unconfrontable. Well, we do this in several ways. The main way is by taking courses and learning datums about it. And one of them I didn't bring is one on, it's called Success Through Communication. And this is where a person actually learns the parts of communication so that they're all there, because a lot of talking and yelling is not communication. It's a lot of sound, right? And then there are drills to practice so that they get their skill and to be able to be there comfortably with someone, and then to be able to talk to them and be able to listen without interrupting them so you hear their side. And if you can get two people into two-way communication long enough, they can resolve their problems, no problem. And then, of course, that's a skill they can use at work, and they can use it handling their children, handling their boss, you name it. So we have a course room where those types of things are delivered. We also have counseling, as she mentioned, and that would be a one-on-one type counseling, and the rabbi was the first to bring it up, and that is the handling of loss. And we happen to have our own mental science in Scientology. It's called Dianetics. It's not hard to learn. What happens when a person has a loss, and it could be a loss of a job in these days, with this in the economy we're in, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And this can put them down into a situation where they don't recover, where they stay down. Now, if you lose a loved one that's very important to you, obviously we're going to grieve, go through a grieving process. But then you come back up and you go after life. Sometimes people don't come back up. They only come part of the way. Or they come mostly up, but they're carrying something. What happens during a loss like that is part of your emotion, your life force, the stuff that you used to live life with, gets encysted and trapped. And so Dianetics is a way of releasing that pent-up loss and pain, freeing up the person's emotions so that they can now deal with life and go on. And remember the good things about the relationship and all the great memories. Those are pleasurable moments. I helped a lady recently with Dianetics who had lost her father. She had helped him as he went through a long illness. And they used to enjoy listening to jazz music, as an example. After he passed away, she could not listen to their favorite jazz tune. It brought, rather than the joy of all the many times they spent together, her on his lap when she was younger, were now not to be had. With Dianetics, after it was handled, and it takes a number of hours, maybe 5 or 6, sometimes less. It could be done in a day or 2 or less. That was handled. She called me a couple days later and said, guess what? Because I had to try it. I put that record on, and I enjoyed it. Thank you. Another example, which I'd really like to relay, is someone from another faith who, a lady in her mosque came to learn how to do Dianetics. As I said, it's not a difficult thing to learn. And then she brought in a friend from one of her sisters from the mosque who had not been able to enjoy Thanksgiving for a number of years. She had lost a son about that time period. And I was there the day that she wanted to come to an event we were having. She wanted to share her life now that that's been handled. And she had this joy in her face. She said, I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving this year. And I have wonderful memories of my son, but it no longer ruins that experience with my family. So those are things, that's the kind of things that we do. Another thing that comes up often is, and especially these days, but also at holiday time, it's financial stress. People have overspent, people have lost their jobs, or people are in trouble financially, and believe me, that gets in the way of your sleep and gets in the way of the happiness in your marriage, and we could just go on and on. We attack that again with knowledge and wisdom, and this is one of the life improvement courses that I brought. It's overcoming financial stress, and these are very short. They take maybe 4 or 5 course periods of 2 hours, 2.5 hours in length. They show you how to apply it, and they're very inexpensive. Like the materials and everything is $50. Then there are people, again, they don't know how to deal with certain people. They want to improve their relationship with their mother-in-law, or that uncle's new wife, or whatever. This is how to improve relationships with others. Then there are those that you come across at any time through your work or life, but they can be members of the family or relatives that are pretty antisocial. But they're part of your family. How do you deal with them? And there is a way to do that, and if you don't deal with it, you find people have ups and downs. They feel good, then they're around that person, then boom, they walk away and they actually feel like crap. And we call that a roller coastering. So we have a course called Overcoming Ups and Downs in Life. We also have a number of courses that are free on the internet for people that are a distance away. For example, how to resolve conflicts. You can go on the internet, it's free. There's a course, this is the booklet that's covered, but it's all on the internet. Sometimes people during holidays are reminded of the transgressions that they committed to other family members. There's things that they've done they're not happy about. They have a heavy heart. And there's counseling for that, confessionals, but there's also courses on improving one's integrity and honesty. And it provides a way for them to get out of that so they can feel good about themselves again and take it from there. So I think I'm over my time. So that gives you an idea of how we address it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Liz, for sharing all of those tools that Scientology uses for assisting people. And I love the idea of when we can come together like this and learn from each other and learn the tools that faith groups are using. It's
yes.
very rich for us to grow together. Our last panelist today is the lovely Gurukirn Kaur Khalsa. She is from the Sikh tradition. She is an ordained Sikh minister and has been a practicing Sikh for over 35 years. She has had many opportunities to share her faith and engage in dialogue and presentations over the years, and is also an Arizona Interfaith board member. And in addition, our lovely Gurukirn has also participated twice, at least twice, in the Parliament of World Religions. The first year in Barcelona, Spain, and just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, in Melbourne, Australia, where she actually delivered a presentation and was also on the Arizona Interfaith Movement panel. That was a presentation that was presented there. We are delighted to have you here today, and she will share from the Sikh tradition. I'm going to.
Cool.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate being here, and I appreciate this beautiful hall. We're in a phase of creating a new Gurdwara, so I'm looking at all the details and taking it all in, all the colors and everything. It's beautiful. Within the Sikh tradition, we have a term for the community, which is Sad Sangat. Sad means discipline, and Sangat means company. And we have an expression, the spirit rises in the company of the holy. And for Sikhs, most of what we do is done in community with other people. Sikhs are always oriented towards getting together in a group. And we see the Sad Sangat, the community, everyone as our family. So our problem might be more that there are too many people than not enough people in our lives. You know, we always have many people to worship with, to eat with, to serve, and like that. So that's our orientation, is to really do things within the community. Our holidays, most of them they're called Gurukirns, and they're based on actual historic events or the lives of people who live within the last 500 years. So it's perhaps a little more current than some of the other traditions. We also have a yogic arm of our faith, and We have a winter solstice celebration that's about 10 days. That's in Florida, where everybody gets together and does white tantric yoga and worships together. And that's a way of kind of getting out of, our daily ruts and routines, and really being on a spiritual retreat and taking that time of the solstice, which, is when the sun is, at its lowest, getting together in spirit and really meditating very deeply. So that's a very profound experience. My children are arranging for me to go this year, so I'm very excited about that.
Yay.
And then we have our Thanksgiving feast is all together, so we have about 150 people that gather for that. So the burden of all the cooking is not on the mother or the grandmother. It's spread out throughout the community. And our holiday season starts in October with the birthday of Guru Ram Das, and he was the one who excavated the nectar tank around the Golden Temple in Paul. Was just there. And the Golden Temple is, our holiest shrine. So on that day, the whole perimeter of the temple is, lit with lights, and then the tops of all these beautiful dome buildings have these amazing light shows. There are lights, going around this way and, blinking and all that. And then there are these little oil candles that are put on the actual pool, which is quite large, and so the whole thing is lit up. It's really quite amazing. We also have another holiday, which is Bandi Chor Divas, Diwali, which is also a festival of light. We just actually celebrated that a week ago. And because we have many, many immigrants in our community, most people have strong ties to India. We try to bring the holidays that they had in India and try to recreate them as much as we can here in America. So on Diwali, everyone brings a candle to the Gurdwara, to our temple, and we line them up along the walkways and in front of our Guru, our holy scriptures. So there are all these twinkling candles. It gets like a little wild sometimes, a lot of candles out there, but it's just a really exciting time for the children, especially. They get really excited by that, and so the whole community gets caught up in that enthusiasm of the light. And then towards the end of the season, we have Guru Nanak's birthday. Guru Nanak was the founder of the Sikh faith, and that's one of our two biggest celebrations. So we even actually have Hindus and Muslims who come to our temple as well, because Guru Nanak was, loved by people of many faiths, and so that's a very large, gathering, and we decorate, our whole altar, and have beautiful silk and embroidered ramalas, and so the beauty of the presentation, the decoration, and then the whole community gathering together is an upliftment. I think for Sikhs, there's always that sense that, I can go to Gurdwara and I'm not alone, because I really am. I am in the company of the holy. So a Sikh naturally would overcome that sense of loneliness by being with others. And so that's, part of our tradition. And then we have, as our main part of our service, the sacred songs, which are written by the Sikh gurus and other saints of the time from as long as about 800 years ago. And many of them also have the theme of light in them, especially at this time of year. And so we're reminded as we're singing these songs that, even in the darkness, there is the light of the Spirit. And the light of the Spirit, comes through our meditation. It comes through joining together. And more than anything, comes through singing. And I think many of our traditions have song as a basis, and it's that song that helps the spirit to, rise up and go beyond what is, temporal. We call it Maya, or the, transient world, but it's that song that brings us into the understanding that, the soul is beyond, all this that eventually dies away. And then finally, we have, this is part of the experience interfaith, is our Gurukirn Kaur, which is tradition that started with Guru Nanak, where people were served the same food in long lines, called the langar lines, and were able to experience a sense of equality through food. And you'll never go hungry in a Sikh community. we probably don't get too down because we're too full. we cook the food together. It's a great time for, often it's extended families, so like all the gills, and then it'll be like 50 people, we'll get together and cook a meal for that Sunday. And so the cooking is a social time, and I see like food preparation as creation and bringing in all the, 5 elements, the fire, the water, the air, earth, and everything, and bringing it together to create something that then you share and you nourish and you uplift other people with it. And the langar was originally created to help break down the caste system in India. People used to eat in their own little groups and actually wouldn't prepare food together. So Guru Nanak said, we're going to make it together, and we're going to serve it, and we're going to eat it all together. And the langar service is like the culmination of our worship service, and it's really a time when anybody can help serve the food to other people, and we eat it together, and there's a real sense of, excuse me, that community and bonding. So those are the main elements that Sikhs incorporate into their lives to keep uplifted and to overcome, personal challenges. We do it as a group. We do it with song. We do it with food and community.
Thank you so much, Gurukirn. That was really enlightening. And enlightening in the fact of Diwali, too. I actually didn't know that the Sikh community celebrated Diwali. I thought it was just Indian community.
Can I share?
Yes.
Yeah, it was actually a coincidental event. The sixth Sikh Guru, Guru Hargobind, had been imprisoned in a fort by the Mughal Empire, and so he was, so impressive in captivity that they realized that, they had made a mistake in imprisoning him. So they said, well, we'll let you go. But in the prison with him were 52 Rajput princes that he had befriended in his captivity. And he said to the authorities, well, I'm not going to go unless they can all go too. And so that presented the authorities with a conundrum. So they said, well, you can take as many people out as can hold on to your cape. So he had a special cape made with 52 tassels. It was very, very long. And so they each held on to a tassel, and all 52 were able to get out of the fort. And when he got back to Amritsar, where the Golden Temple is, it was actually the celebration of Diwali. So Diwali is also called Badichor Divas, which is the day, Liberation Day, basically, the liberation from captivity. So it was like, the celebration of light because he was out of captivity.
Thank you so much. Sure. Thank you so much for that information. And I love how you also said that everyone is a member of your family. And we know that to be true from the fabulous Langars, that no one will ever go hungry if there is a Gurudwara close by. So wonderful sharing now. And now it is your time for any questions or comments. And the key here is, of course, respect. I will be tough. I look very sweet and meek, but we are very, very, very passionate about really loving on each of these wonderful people who've given up of their time and learning. Our opportunity is to learn and to deepen and to ask questions that help us to grow in understanding. And Larry has the microphone, so if you have a comment or a question for any of our panelists, please raise your hand and let us know.
Who wants to ask a question? I got one here, then we'll do Paul.
Thanks, Mary. Well, I've got several, but okay. I heard a very disturbing statistic on the radio the other day concerning veterans and depression and PTSD and the whole thing. That and it's, I'm not sure if it's the exact number, but it's pretty close. Something like every 45 seconds in the country, a veteran takes his own life. So, Laura, I was wondering if you dealt with anybody along those lines, coming back from, Iraq or something like that, and how you dealt with that, kind of from a spiritual perspective.
Well, excuse me, that's a heavy statistic. I haven't heard that it was that high, but it is pretty high. It's at the highest it's ever been right now. And I would say mostly it's because people have gone on multiple deployments since 9/11. I've known people who've gone 6, 7, 8 times within the last 11 years. And that's just too much. I mean, it's tough enough to go once, but then again and again and again, it just shatters a person. Yes, I have had to deal with suicide, and it's difficult because there is part of the chaplain's job is to go with the commander and give the death notification. And every time I've ever done one, whatever officer I'm with, they're like, "You're going to tell them, right, chaplain?" No. The method is that the officer, the commander, whoever, if it's the commander or the officer, gives the unfortunate news, and then how the person reacts. They might pass out. They might start throwing fists at the messenger, and if the chaplain's bearing the bad news, how can the chaplain minister? So everyone responds differently. So you minister not only to the family, but also the people in the unit, because they are just grief-stricken by such a tragedy too. It's tough. It's very difficult, and a lot of people are. I think the Veterans Administration right now is definitely recognized that this is a big problem, and trying to get a lot of people into therapy and treatment, and trying to do something to help our veterans.
I'd like to comment on that one, if I could. That is an area that concerns us as well, and now I'm speaking more from the Citizens Commission on Human Rights hat that I wear. And PTSD, or whatever you want to call it, the losses and the tragedies that occur in war and in fighting do leave a problem in the mind. Now, that does not necessarily lead someone to suicide. It sure ruins their life while they're experiencing it. But what we found, a tremendous increase in the use of psychotropic medication on the military. And there is a known thing about those drugs, especially when they're in combination, several at a time, that they can cause, and you've seen the TV ads, they can cause suicide and violence and horrendous side effects. And so we have a campaign going to enlighten that part of the public on what's happening there, showing websites where they can actually pull up the side effects of these drugs before they decide to take them. In other words, informed consent. And of course, there are alternatives to handling war stress. One of them, what we would use is Dianetics. It's not, Dianetics partially was developed out of the Second World War when Hubbard was in the military himself. And he helped a number of the people returning from the death camps and from Japan and Germany at Oaknall Hospital. So we have solutions there, but there are non-psychiatric solutions as well for this type of thing. But the problem is there's been a huge selling of the idea that if you're depressed or you have a problem, you take a pill. And these pills are very powerful. So that's where we go with that.
I was never in active military, but I did serve as a civilian chaplain for the Air Force. Thank you, Air Force. For Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico when I was a rabbi in Texas. And also when I was the rabbi up in Minnesota, I worked with the Minnesota Air Force, the National Guard, which is one of the biggest. They had 3,000 full-time employees, and it was a reserve unit. So it was one of the biggest in the country as far as full-time employees at a reserve base, an Air Force reserve base. So I have a little experience militarily, not a lot, certainly. But whenever I see the commercials for things dealing with the veterans, it just gets me angry. And I think one of the major things which I wish would happen, which may come maybe through pressure from the veterans groups or the local veteran administration or things, is that I think certainly, however it's done, whatever the person needs, is when they're deployed so much, or even during deployment, is that we have help out in the field for the veterans, not so much waiting for them to come back after they've gone 6 times and then trying to make a difference, which to me has to be done in a very short time to make that difference. But if there was help in the field for the veterans while they're out there, and I don't mean, because I know too, the psychotropic drugs, and there are many, many side effects of those things as well. I'm just talking about people, for these soldiers, when they're encountering and doing, and they're on the spot, for people to talk with, not always the chaplain per se. The chaplains can only talk with so many people in a given day, but other people who are there to listen and to talk to, regardless of what it is.
Like, who would you suggest?
Well, you either need more chaplains, which of course the military needs, or you need to have more people who have some type of training and things, whether it be regardless of the religious faith or the background. You have people who are, again, you're in the military from all religions, all faiths, so you need to have those people. They don't need to be serving on the front lines, but certainly, the sergeant would know if one of his men were having trouble. So you send him to the back, and you send him so he can talk and be with somebody who will help and listen. Even again, listening. You can imagine what it is to be out in that front, to be out there not knowing if an IED is going to explode on you every day, and things of that nature. And then, maybe seeing a comrade, a friend, or somebody blown up, and you have nobody to talk to, because the next thing you know, you're out on the next mission and the next patrol. And so there's such a buildup that comes over time. I don't know how we as, normal human beings, quote unquote, living in, our free society and getting this all on the news, if we were confronted with some of what these soldiers are confronted with while they're going through it, we wouldn't be able to handle it over and over and over again. So we need to find a way, whatever the way that is, however it's devised, whatever it's done, that we have more people to help these people while they're out there doing it, not always when they come back and you load it on top of the VA, which is overloaded as it is with all the things that are going on with veterans. We need to be there out with them. We need to have people. There may even be people who are willing to go through, I would be, a training period, and then even volunteer to be at those places, to be help to those soldiers. They need our help while they're there, as well as when they get back. But it's while they're there that they're starting to go this, that they have nobody to look to and nobody to turn to, and all the stress. And you got to remember, it's not only the stress of their fighting, it's the stress of their loved ones at home. Because they're thinking about them, they're thinking about their spouses, they're thinking about their children, they're thinking about their parents, they're thinking about all these other things, and have nobody to turn to. Go see the chaplain. Chaplains, it's wonderful that there's a chaplain, but the chaplain doesn't have the type of time to be giving, okay, to that individual that might be necessary. So how they do it, what they do, I have no idea, but I wish it was done. So as a thing of having my own experience and being with them, doing some stuff here at the VA hospital and things and visiting, with Jewish people there, Jewish patients. So.
Thank you, Rabbi Scharf.
I have a question here, then we'll go over there.
I have a couple of comments I'd like to make. One is I spent 5 years in New Zealand, practicing in New Zealand, 3 years in North Island, 2 years in South Island. And I went in Koel, which is the southern part of New Zealand, and I met a rabbi. So I just want for your information, I didn't have a good question to call. There's nothing else in Koel. It's the end of the earth. That's it. You go there, this is it. That's the end of the earth. So it was interesting to know that there is such a service available in the southern part of New Zealand. That's one. The other thing is, there's a big article today in Arizona Republic about this suicidal casualty that happens. People who are being